Welcome to Lyme Time. I'm Allie from the Tick Chicks. We are all more than Lyme disease and chronic illness, and together we stand with you to overcome and rise. I'll bring you closer to the experts in cutting-edge treatments and even a few unexpected ways of healing. I'll ask the questions you want answers to regarding Lyme disease and successful ways of getting you closer to 100%. We are in this together and will not be defined by Lyme. Today, I'm so honored to have as my special guest, Jody Hudson. Jody is Grants and Philanthropy Director for California, which is CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocates, and is a fundraising professional with over 15 years of nonprofit leadership experience. She is also the CEO and founder of the Alex Hudson Lyme Foundation, AHLF, an organization that seeks to increase research efforts and patient support for Lyme disease, and MCAS, which is mast cell activation disorder. Before joining California CASA in 2021, Hudson served as Vice President of Development and Communications for Girl Scouts of Central California South, and before that, led the Catholic Charities Diocese of Fresno as Director of Operations. In 2018, Hudson was honored with the Marjorie Mason Center Top 10 Professional Women Award. In 2020, she was KSEE's 24's Remarkable Women. Jody fought for 10 years to save her daughter Alex from a mysterious chronic illness. Unfortunately, Alex passed away in March of 2018. Hudson's book, My Promise to Alex, Creating Purpose from Pain, will be released this winter. Jody, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this time spent with you and your listeners.
Before we get into everything, I just wanted to read a short synopsis of the book, My Promise to Alex, which I think must be, of all your awards, your most prized accomplishment. And the synopsis says, when 11-year-old Alex Hudson complained that her leg hurt, her mother, Jody, thought it was just growing pains. But for the next 10 years, Alex battled with what perplexed doctors deemed a medical mystery. Refusing to let this ambiguous label define her, Alex researched and sought out medical professionals who might help her. After more than 40 doctor's visits and multiple incorrect diagnoses, in May of 2017, Alex finally received the correct diagnosis, Lyme disease. She immediately began aggressive treatment, but would it prove to be too late? Throughout her ever-changing illness, Alex forged ahead and focused on her faith, finding answers while taking time to serve others. When the physical pain became unbearable, she refused to take medication to ease her suffering. Instead, she chose to keep a clear mind and trust God to guide her as she faced each impossible challenge. So this book is, I'm sure, if it's not already on every Lyme parent's bookshelf, it's soon to be, especially from my followers, because I would think that hearing firsthand from somebody who went through this horrifying experience and a litany of misdiagnosis, it's just something that I think a lot of people would look to as a resource book even. And I wanted to start out by just talking a little bit about, the day this all started and what you were doing and how it progressed from there with Alex.
As far as her Lyme journey or writing the book? The Lyme journey? Yes.
The Lyme journey.
Oh my gosh. So it really all started when she was in 5th grade, and she was quite an accomplished athlete. And she was complaining about, these pains in her ankles and her shins and her knees. And we thought maybe it was just an overworked athlete body because she had been playing sports since she was about 6 or 7 years old. So we took her to the primary care doctor, went through, the regular, test, and nothing came back abnormal. And they basically dismissed it as growing pains, an overworked body, just take some ibuprofen, and, she should be better with some rest and ice. Well, it never stopped, and it only got worse. And it got worse to the point where, fast forward to when she was in high school, her freshman year, She was playing basketball and she was running on the court doing a layup, and her knees just ballooned to the size of grapefruits, and she collapsed on the court and had to be carried off.
Mm.
From that point forward, she had arthroscopic knee surgery. Again, they were doing tests and they just could not determine what was wrong. They kept saying, you know, we know that something is not right, but all these tests come back negative. I mean, we were going to UCLA, we were going to the best of the best doctors. And she had that knee surgery done and it didn't help. And from her freshman year in high school till she passed, you know, everything changed. She couldn't run, she couldn't participate in sports. Who she identified with, her friends, that all changed, and her world really came, you know, crashing down on her. Then the digestive, her weight started to decrease, and she started getting food allergies, and it was just like all this stuff started happening at once, and we again just could not figure out what was going on. Fast forward now to her senior year in high school, still having all of these issues. She decided that she needed to stay home instead of go away to college and really focus on her health. So she had to give up a full ride scholarship to UCLA. She had to give up all of these dreams so she could really focus on getting better. And again, it just got worse. It got to the point where 2017, in the spring of 2017, she was down to about 80 pounds. And on her own, she found this doctor down in Los Angeles who specialized in, you know, mystery ailments, things that with the digestive system. And she said to me, she said, Mom, she goes, I think I found the doctor that's going to be able to figure out what's going on with me. And this now had been after 40 plus doctors, all the best doctors in California. And at this point I said, you know, what do we have to lose? Why not? So we got in the car, went down there for the visit. And within a half hour of presenting her whole medical history, he asked us, Mrs. Hudson and Alex, have you ever been tested for Lyme disease? And we both looked at each other with blank stares and said, what is Lyme disease? That was 2017. Well, now I could be a doctor in Lyme disease from everything that I learned from that point forward, unfortunately. And like I said, she was really struggling. I mean, just with the joint issues, with her digestive system, with the weight loss. And so from 2017, May of 2017, ironically, she was diagnosed in the month of May, which is Lyme Disease Awareness Month, right? May 2017 until she passed of March 2018, I spent over $100,000 trying to help heal her. And I just couldn't.
Do they know, or do you suspect any time in her childhood that she was bit by a tick? Did you have any signs looking back that would have
She
led to
was
anything?
a normal child, right? I mean, loved the outdoors. We used to go up to Shaver Lake quite a bit with friends and family, but there was never really one moment that I could say, oh, you know, this is, I think, when she was sick and must have had it and we didn't realize it, right? I mean, she got the typical colds, flus, but never got that classic bullseye rash, you know,
Yeah.
indicator that would let me know that, yes, she had Lyme disease.
And
So
not
no,
many people do.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard when you don't have that telltale sign, but
Right.
many people don't, and that's why they go wandering around from specialist to specialist. And I live in the Los Angeles area too, and I can relate to the feeling of, wait a minute, I have access to the best doctors.
Yeah.
I'm at the best at Cedars, I'm at the best at UCLA, I'm at the best everywhere, and yet it could take years before somebody suggests a Lyme disease test.
And I'm hopeful now. A lot has happened since 2018 when Alex passed. I feel like Lyme disease, I mean, it made it on Time magazine. I mean, it's out there now, right? People are talking about it, where myself, even back in 2017, I had to ask that question, what is Lyme disease? And the more I looked into it, I was like, oh, that's on the East Coast, right? That's not here in California. And wow, I have learned a lot. I have definitely educated myself. I had to for my daughter's sake. And now what I'm trying to do is just help educate others and just be that resource and, give that people the leg up that I didn't have because I had to start from ground zero.
Yeah. Yeah. I can relate, just having gone through it on a personal level. I can't imagine trying to guess what's going on with another individual, because I know my body and I knew what I could tell doctors, but to try to be the voice of a child must be nearly impossible.
So that was hard. And the really hard thing about it was the denial, the strange looks, the psychosis that we felt that we must have for these doctors as we're talking about Alex's case, that, they didn't believe in Lyme disease. They thought we were crazy. I had Alex finally write on a piece of paper. I said, help me to help you. Like, I need to understand how you feel, what, hurts you the most. So when I'm in that doctor's office being your advocate, I can speak up for you. And so she did. And I thought she was just going to fill the front page, but she flipped it to the backside and was still listing all of these things that she felt. And I said, oh my gosh, Alex, this is what's going on with you. She said, yes, Mom. And you have to believe me because nobody else does. And that, I think, seeing it in print was such a visual for me. And from that, I'm getting rubbed up right now just talking about it. Like, I need to be that advocate for my daughter and for people, that others that are suffering from this and don't have that voice, because that's so important.
It's so important. And what a wonderful mother you are, an advocate, because, oftentimes in this day and age, the parents are thinking, oh my gosh, it's another thing. And I could see how it would be taxing and tiring, especially when the doctors are all saying, well, she's normal. I'm not seeing anything here, or we tried the surgery, that didn't work. I'm sorry, that's kind of all we can provide. So I give you just so much love and credit for believing in your child. It's hard when they give you a 2-page list of symptoms to say, okay, is this really happening for her? But you believed her. And that takes me to my question, which is the title of your book being My Promise to Alex. Tell me, what was your promise to Alex and how did that turn into a book?
Wow. So it was quite the journey, just, thinking about what I was going to do after she passed. We had been through a lot together, especially that last year, right? But I was a single mom. I have a son who was 2 years older than Alex. So we were a very tight-knit family. We did everything together. And I always said that she was my other half, right? That mother-daughter relationship was just so incredibly strong. We just were always there for each other. And I started crying just thinking about it, because I know that she's still with me now while I'm, doing all of this work on her behalf. But she really had this mindset that she was going to be this Lyme warrior, that she was going to beat this disease, and that she was going to set about with the foundation and help raise funds for individuals that could afford Lyme treatment, because she knew she had that personal experience of what it felt like to have to be a patient and a doctor at the same time. And she was thankful that she had me and that we had a great support group of friends, but most people don't have that. And she saw that going on all these different Facebook support groups, that people were just so lonely and they were just looking for that one person to support them. And she was going to be their one.
Mm.
And when we got, towards the end, and I just knew that everything that we had done, it just was not turning the corner on her health. We made this pact, and the pact was that I was going to carry her torch, and I was going to do this work in her honor. And, people tell me, gosh, how do you move on from losing a child, number one, and then how do you move on with such grit, determination, and force to be that change agent? And I said, well, obviously my faith played a great role in where I'm at today. And Alex gave me a parting gift, and I talk about it in the book. And that parting gift was on the day she passed. There was a couple of close friends of myself, and we're all just sitting around the bedside, and she was dozing and kind of in and out of things. And I was talking to her and just giving her that permission to go, because I knew she was hanging on because she didn't want me to be sad. But my love for her was so strong that I knew she was going to be in a better place, because I couldn't bear to see her continue to suffer. And like you said in the beginning, she didn't take any pain medication. She wanted to be ever so present for everything in her life. And so in the final moments, I remember her lifting her head up from the pillow, and she opened up her eyes and looked towards the ceiling and had this great big smile on her face. And then she laid her head back down and she passed. And that parting gift was, she showed me where she was going, that I was going to be going there too, and that she was okay, and that she wanted me to move forward with the blessing, just like I was giving her my blessing. And so I didn't realize that I was going to write a book. I knew I was going to start a foundation, and that happened quite quickly. She passed in March, and by June, I had already established the Alex Hudson Lyme Foundation, which in itself was remarkable because I was working for a nonprofit at that time, and then starting a nonprofit, doing fundraising, doing all these things. And I had been given an award in the Central Valley, which provided me the opportunity to speak about Alex's story. And several people would come up to me after I would speak, and they would say, so when's the book coming out? And I just laughed. I'm like, I don't write books. I don't journal. Like, I'll do a gratitude journal, but I haven't been a blogger. I write business reports, right? I'm a businesswoman. But that thought stuck in my mind. And one night I just sat down and I started typing away. And it was hard. I sobbed, I cried. But 4 months later, I had this 50,000 word manuscript. So I know it was definitely divine intervention, and definitely something that Alex helped me with. And, I was kind of giving her a hard time in the beginning when I was writing this book, going, gosh, Alex, it would have been so easy if you would have journaled, or if you would have, had these notes that I could, use in this book. But people reminded me, Jody, you had her medical journal. I had like stacks and stacks of all this stuff from her doctors, which helped me with the timeline and helped me to kind of put together her story. So now I take it back. I'm not mad at her any longer.
Maybe, just maybe, this book needed to be told by you and through your eyes, to inspire other parents out there with children with Lyme disease, which, I know it's a difficult topic, or maybe it is, but I know that they'll want to know how did she pass at the end? I mean, did she have cardiac? Did it go to her heart?
So how she passed at the end was, and you mentioned it very briefly in the bio. So it really wasn't Lyme disease that took her life. It was the mast cell activation syndrome. And people that are familiar with mast cell activation syndrome, it was to the point where she was allergic to all different types of waters. There was only like one type of water that she could digest. She was down to about 2 or 3 types of food. So, when she started this, she was about 5, 6.5, weighed about 122, 125 pounds. When she passed away, she was 57 pounds. So this disease just slowly ate away at everything with her system. And, we tried everything. We were ready to do a TPN, and then that didn't turn out well towards the end. Just a lot of different medical dramas that I talk about in the book. But it was her system just shut down.
Yeah. And so is the thought then that Lyme then triggered the MCAS?
Correct.
And
Yeah.
that and a lot of people have the mast cell.
Yeah.
And some people have it just sort of from time to time, and others have it the way your daughter did. And so that's kind of another, I guess, another topic for another time, because it looks so different in so many different people. And I'm just sorry that it got the best of her, because that must have been terrifying to not be even able to drink water or eat a basic food item.
For your listeners and parents that are listening, they will identify with this. There's nothing worse than watching a loved one suffer, and there's nothing that you can do for them. As parents, we fix things. We from the get-go fix things for our children. We, fix boo-boos, we fix homework, we fix broken hearts, we fix all these things. I could not fix this. And it drove me, it just drove me to desperation. I would sometimes just be in the car, just taking off driving, because I never ever wanted to see Alex, have Alex see me, in this broken state, because I had to be her cheerleader. I had to be her champion. I was, getting her to the finish line. Yes, you can do this. You can do this. We're going to turn this around. But I had turmoil within me all the time. And I would go for drives and just pull over and bang on the dashboard and just be so mad at God, saying, I can't handle this purgatory. You either take her or you heal her. But to be in this unknown, I can't handle it, because I needed to be able to control whatever it was. And I didn't know where it was going. I didn't know if she was going to be healed, or I didn't know if she wasn't going to make it. And it was just the most, it was horrible. It was just agony during that time. And that's why I just kept digging deeper and deeper into my faith, reaching out to friends for support. The last couple of months, Alex was bedridden, and we had a prayer couple come in, which I tell everybody, hospice is great at the end, but boy, a prayer couple is just the blessing that everybody needs, because they poured into Alex and they poured into me as well. And she didn't like a lot of people around her at the end, because, she was still vain. She was like, gosh, Mom, I look terrible. I don't want to see people. But she loved George and Kathleen, and they came over faithfully twice a week. And she, everything had been taken from Alex, but she still read about a book a day. And so she would challenge George and Kathleen on these books that she would read about, spirituality and just all this theological stuff that was way over my head. And it was so, she lived for those moments. So they definitely helped her in the end. And obviously they helped me too.
And that's just such a beautiful, beautiful legacy to give all of our listeners, just to understand that resources like those that people don't talk about a lot are out there. Can you tell us how did you come across the couple, or was it through a church, or was it through an organization?
So Ellie, that's such a good question. And I don't get asked that that often, as far as, the different resources. And I didn't even know that was available to me. I was born and raised Catholic, and, I still went to Mass every week. And so did Alex, but she started diving into more of the non-denominational churches. So we found ourselves attending a Mass and a service every weekend. We kind of like double dipped, right? We needed that. We're like, okay, let's just, coat our bodies, with this armor of faith. Maybe it will help, right? It can always help. It can't hurt. So she found this community at this non-denominational church that just loved on her and gave her bracelets. And even at the end, when I was wheeling her to church, because she didn't want to miss that. She, didn't want to miss her friends. She was part of something. And it was painful. I would have to put like layers upon layers of blankets and, comfortable things in that wheelchair, because imagine a 60-pound frame and this metal, clunky equipment. It was just painful for her. But I would, pat her up and roll her into service. And she just loved that and lived for it. And when that was taken away from her, when she couldn't do that, I, reached out to them. And then I also reached out to our Catholic church, and a priest came over and he talked to Alex, and he, took me aside and he said, Jody, there's a ministry group that would love to come out and pray with you if, Alex is so inclined. And I said, gosh, I don't know. She, again, wasn't really liking a lot of people in her space at that time, but I said, we'll give it a try. So 5 people came one night, and I knew that was going to be too much for Alex. But this one couple, George and Kathleen, there was something about them that she just said, Mom, she said, I don't want the whole group to come, but it's okay for George and Kathleen to come. And they, like I said, just loved on her. Alex was estranged from her dad, so George was that fatherly figure that she really needed at the end. And Kathleen was just this doting aunt that just adored her. And after Alex passed, we kept on meeting. And the friends that I talked about that were at Alex's bedside, we formed this little Bible study. And it was a nice transformation from what we just went through with Alex to just be together and try and heal together. Because yes, I went through hell and back, but my friends were part of that too. They were still healing. George and Kathleen wept like they lost their own daughter. I mean, she was that important in their lives. So it was, it was a beautiful orchestration of just keeping together as community. So I really encourage people, find your group, find your space, find those people that can be there to support you through all of this, because, life knocks you on your feet for sure. And you've got to be able to, reach out that arm and have somebody grab it and pull you back up. So I encourage people to look for that person or those people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And can you talk a little bit about any organizations that you're involved with now, after the fact, and as you start this new chapter in your life? And with the foundation, are you getting support, ongoing support for yourself?
So I, for me, the support is through my faith. So I wasn't the type of person that really wanted to go to a grief support group and, talk about all this. I work my issues out by projects. I've always been like a project mode person. And even with Alex, with that last year, I look back on it and go, how did I do that? I was working full time. I really couldn't take much time off from work. My friends were, my coworkers were giving me sick time and sick leave so I could go across the country to help heal Alex. But yeah, it's like I look back and go, good God, how did I do all of that? But I did. And it was definitely by the grace of God, through my, strong faith and just knowing that, Alex needed me to do this. We didn't have any other choices, but everything was just project mode for me. And after she passed, I think, even this foundation, they say it normally takes about a year to come together. And for me, it only took 3 months. So like Alex and God knew, hey, we got to keep Jody busy because otherwise she's going to be a twisted sister.
Uh-huh.
And when I got the letter, I even asked my accountant, I said, Roland, I don't think this is correct. Like, doesn't it take a year? And he said to me in classic Roland fashion, he said, Jody, sometimes the good Lord does things there are no explanations for. Congratulations, you've got yourself a foundation. So then I called up my friends. I said, okay, I've got this foundation. What am I supposed to do? Well, you do a fundraiser. You let people know what you're doing. I'm like, oh my God. So I was like, I never had time to really grieve, but I did when I wrote the book. So I didn't know I was going to write this book, but God knew, Alex knew, and it was going to be two-prong. It was going to be my healing process because it was going to be on my terms. I was sitting down, I was doing a project, right? I was writing a book, but then it was also going to be that book to have Alex's legacy and story go on forever and be that book where, I mean, it's only been out since February now. We've sold over 2,000 copies. I've got almost 100 five-star reviews on Amazon. It just blows me away of the response. And of course, it's a lot of people in the Lyme community, but it's a lot of other people that are just going through challenges. Gosh, your daughter inspired me. You inspired me. Like, you made me see that there could be a light through all of the darkness that, you know, we go through. So I'm just speechless and overwhelmed because I just, like I said, I'd never written a book before. And I thought, God, if one or two people understand what I'm talking about, and I'm not rambling and I make a good point, good for me. And now it's like, wow, amazing.
I mean, it's such a gift. It will continue to give years and years and years down the road.
Yeah.
It's timeless. And like I said, it must be just such a resource for parents of children with Lyme disease. By the way, I should note that Lyme disease affects children more than any other of the populations out there. It's just children in general are more susceptible. I don't know whether it's being adventurous like Alex was, or, you know, running around barefoot outside, exploring, and all those wonderful things that children do, but they are the hardest hit.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about what the foundation does?
Sure. So, again, you know, Alex wanted to be that Lyme warrior and to beat the disease and to have a foundation to help with Lyme treatment, the cost of it, because as we know, I spent $100,000 in 1 year, and most of the Lyme treatment is not covered by insurance, which, you know, we need to get all that to change one day. But so I provide grants. Every year I give out a couple of different grants to individuals that just, you know, write in, tell me their story, let me know where they're at in their process. And since 2018, we have probably distributed about 24 grants. I run it all. It's very grassroots. So, you know, I tell everybody I have my day job, my paying job, but then nights, weekends, I do this. I, you know, work on the foundation. I, you know, help to promote this book. I do speaking engagements. I'm at conferences. So it's a lot of busy work, but I can't stop because I just feel, and people listening to this that have a mission, that have a cause, that have a purpose will understand you can't turn it off, right? You just can't turn it off because these opportunities, these things just come your way, and you know, it's like a God wink. You know that it's just, okay, you and I talking today, that's like a God wink. That's a beautiful thing that happened, and something good will come from this. Someone's going to listen, and, you know, then that trickle is just going to continue. So I just get caught up in that, and it's such a good feeling that I don't want it to ever go away. So I continue to do all of this because I know that it does make a difference. And we do make a difference with the foundation in helping individuals that can't afford treatment. I wish I could pay for their entire treatment, but even if I can pay for someone's testing, which, you know, could be $1,000 plus,
Sure.
then we're helping.
Oh, you're helping so much. I mean, I can't wait to talk more about your foundation on my personal website, thetickchicks.com, and to have your book available on there. In case people miss you along the way, and they happen to stumble across me, they'll get to you.
Yeah.
Because I think the parents of Lyme disease have almost the hardest time in terms of knowing where to go and what to do, and on behalf of another person. So this is a real need. And I'm so grateful to you for fulfilling this huge vacancy out there. I think people are used to hearing individuals advocate for themselves and all of that, but really when it comes to parents and children with Lyme, I think we have a ways to go. So you're just a huge help.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's all about paying it forward. And I was very blessed when Alex was diagnosed in May of 2017 that I had this relationship with KC24. And as I said, Alex was diagnosed in the month of May, which is Lyme Disease Awareness Month. They had just had 3 individuals on, parents of children that had Lyme disease. And so I called up KC24 and I said, my daughter just got diagnosed. I need to be put in touch with these ladies. And if you are familiar with LymeDisease.org and Lonnie Markham, who is their science writer, Lonnie was, I can't even say enough about her. She was my guiding light. And strangely enough, her daughter, Savannah, who is Alex's age, had Lyme disease and mast cell. So Lonnie was my support. Savannah was Alex's support. So they would text. And in the book, I share a lot of these beautiful, sweet texts between the girls, how they were trying to encourage each other. And Lonnie writes an epilogue at the back of the book because she was just so, and she is so wicked smart about Lyme and mast cell, and she connected me with the right doctors. And so I really credit Lonnie with, giving me that little bit of a jump start with Alex's journey. But, again, every Lyme journey is different. What works for one child, one person, doesn't work for everybody. So even though she shared a lot of information with me, and the girls had very similar, infections, Alex just wasn't taking to it. But yeah, so that's what, we need to help each other out. And and for sure, Lonnie was that big source for me.
In closing, I'm wondering, Jody, if you can offer some final words to the parents out there that are feeling desperate, that are feeling the roadblocks ahead that they have, that are feeling financially hopeless and that kind of thing. Can you offer them some words just from a fellow warrior?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, take time for yourself. That's so important. With Alex, I was constantly on the go, constantly, making sure she's taking her meds, making sure I was pouring into her. And it wasn't until one of my friends stopped me and said, "What are you doing for yourself?" And I was like, oh gosh, I'm not even thinking about myself, right? So I, had stopped going to the gym. I had stopped doing all this stuff. And they're like, no, you need to really take care of yourself as well. So, make sure that you are taking that time to put things on pause. It's always going to be there, right? But take time for yourself, because if you're not strong, and if you aren't healthy, you're not going to be able to help the person that you need to, right? So make sure that you do that. Make sure that, for me, it was my foundation. It was my faith. I clung to that, desperately. And make sure to give yourself grace that things aren't always going to happen and turn out. Your days are ever changing. You don't know. You wake up one morning and think, okay, this is what's going to happen. And it doesn't. So you need to give yourself grace and say, okay, today was a real mess, but tomorrow it can be better, right? So just keep encouraging yourself. Keep doing everything that you can with your mindset to pour yourself into a really good space. Reach out and have those friends help you. I didn't have a big family support, but I had friends that were my family and Alex's family. When we came back home from doctor's trips or medical facilities, they would have dinner, waiting for us in the refrigerator, or fresh flowers, or something. And I didn't, this is so important. I didn't allow that in the beginning because I didn't want to inconvenience people, right? But they wanted in so bad. And I didn't know how to let them in because I was just trying to save my daughter and I didn't have time. I was racing over here to the finish line and they were way back here, like just waiting for something to do. And I realized that they needed to be a part of this, whatever small part they could play. And those small parts of just turning on the porch light when we were coming home, if it was late, or getting the mail, or just, going to the grocery store and filling up my pantry, it made them feel so good. And it made us feel good too. So just little things like that, I encourage people to do.
Well, I have to say I'm so touched. I've been fighting back tears this entire time as a mother of 3, and also knowing what it feels like firsthand to have Lyme disease, and your strength and honesty and transparency is so beautiful because it's hard to answer the tough questions and it's hard to revisit it. And I hope that in some way this is therapeutic for you to continue to have tears and to feel it and to move through it, because that's the only way to get through it, is to actually get through it.
Yeah.
And I think the more we bottle up our feelings and pretend like we want to move on and past it, and it's just actually counterproductive in that way. So I
Yeah.
appreciate your honesty. I love your story. I want to shout it from the rooftops. I just want everybody to know about it and how beautiful it is. Again, Jody is the founder of the Alex Hudson Lyme Foundation. She's the author of My Promise to Alex: Through Pain Comes Purpose. She can be reached on Instagram through JKUTA Hudson or at Research for Alex, and on Facebook and LinkedIn, of course. And it's the Alex Hudson LymeFoundation.org. And her book can be found in any of those places, I'm sure, plus the tickchicks.com. And Jody, I wish you all the best in the future. I thank you so much for taking time out to be with us today. And I hope that we get to speak again and maybe one day meet in person.
I would love to be able to meet up with you one day in person. You just have compassion and grace in your actions, your words. You're just a good person. So thank you for having this service for people, because that's how you can pay it forward, right? By helping people get connected and just really having those messages and stories to be told. So thank you for all that you do.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Bye.